or which a lot of people just hang on to. Oh, our forefathers did it that way, so it has to be the same way. If we have a critical mass of children who are able to think and say, look, yes, this aspect of the culture, or this aspect, my forefathers, even though at the time, because our forefathers were not fools, everything they did had a reason, but some of those reasons have changed. And so, but we don't want outsiders thinking for us and helping us decide, what is good about our culture that we should keep, or just churning their own ideas, about what life and solutions to the kind of everyday problems, even developmental problems that we have. We don't want the solutions to always be coming from outside. Please mute yourself. Dotun, can you unmute everybody who is not talking? I'm getting some kind of interference here. So so for those who were with us about 2 years ago when we launched sankofastorybooks.com, it needs no introduction, but I'm just going to quickly just show us what the kind of resources we have there, and also to show that in addition to the sankofastorybooks.com, we now have a kids YouTube channel where we have animated nursery rhymes, animated stories, and thanks to AI, it's getting easier. And we'll just take a very quick look at both of them before I hand over to the moderator, and then the speakers can go on. So let me share my screen. Doctor, you need to allow me to share my screen. Hello? Doctor? You're supposed to... Hello? Let me share my screen, please. Make me go. Okay. Okay, all right. So, okay. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, okay. All right. So, and now I'm going to share this. Can you see my screen? Hello?
Can
everybody see my screen?
We can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so this was what we launched 2 years ago, and you can see we actually have we started with the origin of man, history of humanity and Africa, because we believe, of course, Africa is the cradle of all human life. So so what we do is we break it down into to a level where early readers, children, it can be read to children from about age 4 upwards, and which children who are older can actually read themselves. And everything we have on this website also has audio version. So even for those who are studying to read, they can follow along with the audio. So we have history, we have nursery rhymes, and what we've done with a lot of the nursery rhymes has been, we're doing some traditional African nursery rhymes as well as the ones that children are familiar with, but then changing some of the lyrics so that there are things that are culturally relevant to children on the continent. I know that we did one on I love apples and bananas and things like that. But so we use fruits like mangoes and apples that are more that the children can more easily visualize and relate to. So baby kafo is from I think Republic of Benin. We have olele from Congo. We have our soja kekere, a Yoruba nursery rhyme, kulumbu yeye, and so we continue building. We continue building. We also have some biographies of great Africans. We have people of African descent in the diaspora, Mansa Musa, we have Queen Nziga, Phyllis Wheatley, and we continue to build on them. We also have different types of stories. Some are really short, about 3 or 4 minutes long, for bedtime, and then we have longer ones, 10, 15 minutes long, for children who also want to read. We also have resources for early childhood education, starting from about age 6, between 6 to 9 months. That parents can start using to prepare their children for school, and it goes on to I think age 36 months. So our major focus now is the children's YouTube channel, where we're having more animated stories and all those animated nursery rhymes and legends and things like that. We've just started populating it, but already we have quite a bit there. Yeah, I think the most recent ones, we have things like why do bats fly at night? We also recently launched the story of Obokun of Ijeshala, and we're going to be doing more and more of that. And our approach, like I said, is to work with our approach is to work with people on the continent and everywhere else in the diaspora, because we believe, that they are better positioned, to come up with original stories that show us in a positive light, and quite apart from creating employment for them, it's important, that we don't just leave the telling of our stories to others. We want to, lean in to the power of our voice in all our creative facets. So that's what we're trying to do in a nutshell. Before I hand over to the moderator, Elizabeth Musa, I just want to say a very quick word about her. She's a versatile multimedia journalist who will be moderating this event, and has a rich background in television production as a producer and presenter. And she has spearheaded groundbreaking projects like The Breakfast Central, amplifying African narratives and influencing culture positively. Her expertise extends to live events hosting and finance-based shows like Business Day, and where she continues to innovate and shape narratives in the digital landscape. As a fellow of the MTN Media Innovation Program, Elizabeth Musa remains at the forefront of media evolution, seeing the world as her canvas and media as a tool for expression and making positive impact. Elizabeth Musa, over to you. Thank you once again, everybody who is here. I really appreciate you being here with us. Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. That's for those people who are in Nigeria. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you, wherever it is that you are joining us from. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, okay, great. So once again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson, for that introduction, and thank you for having me as your moderator. Thank you very much, everyone. So we will be going quickly to the agenda of the day. I know that Dr. Bumi has already done a lot of the introduction, and she has also, taken us through some of the things that we are doing at Sankofa or Sankofa Pan African series and the books and all of that. But very quickly, I just want to reintroduce what this webinar is all about. So the purpose of this webinar is to explore the essence of nurturing a strong cultural foundation for children to soar confidently into the future. And that's why it's called Roots and Wings. Roots being the foundation and wings being the future, where these children take flight. We will be exploring thematic areas around parenting, bridging generational gaps, and empowering children through education. Once again, my name is Elizabeth Musa, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. Thank you all so much for joining in and joining in very early. We really appreciate you. So I will be doing quick introductions of our speakers. We have very brilliant people as our speakers for today, so you are in good hands. I'll be doing a brief introduction of them, and then we'll be going into the agenda for the day. And in no particular order, I'll start by introducing Dr. Chizoba Imoka Ugochioma. Dr. Chizoba brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the intersection of academia and practical application with a focus on education reform, youth development, and social justice. Her work spans policy development, system strengthening, and non-profit management, particularly within the Nigerian education context. Notably, she has played key roles in initiatives like the development of Nigeria's national reading framework and piloting methodologies for language policy. As an educator and advocate, she prioritizes creating equitable learning environments and empowering students through mentorship. Our dedication to African-centered perspectives is evident in our initiatives, including Unveiling Africa, which has impacted thousands of teenagers positively. Our contributions to diversity and inclusion, both at Macy College and through various honors and awards, underscore our commitment to advancing social justice and inclusive education practices. So you see why she's one of our panelists and our speakers for today. And next on our speaker list is Dayo Oladele Ilori, who has over 2 decades of diverse industry experience spanning telecommunications, manufacturing, management consulting, non-profit, and marketing communications. She excels in business management and leadership. Our expertise lies in building and leveraging relationships and providing strategic direction, identifying growth opportunities, and leading cross-functional teams to achieve high performance. She is passionate about community development, focusing on nurturing socially intelligent boys and empowering women through character education, life skills, and mentorship. Additionally, she's an author and host of the Mind Connect podcast. She contributes to personal and professional growth through her insightful content. We also have Catherine Wanjiki Ndugu Case. Some people call her Chico. So Catherine Wanjiki Ndugu Case is a multifaceted individual whose diverse passions and experiences converge to enrich both our professional career and our community endeavors. With a background in cell and molecular biology and a career in pharmaceuticals, she combines her scientific expertise with her commitment to cultural preservation and interconnectivity. Through our foundation, which is called Cheza Nami, she strives to share our African heritage, particularly through music and dance, fostering cultural awareness and unity. Chiku's dedication to promoting global citizenship and diversity is evident in her keynote addresses, our panel discussions, and media features, where she advocates for the importance of embracing different cultures and perspectives for a more harmonious society. And on that note, without wasting any more time, I'd like to hand over to our speakers for today. And
please, one quick word about Wanjiku Chiku. She has a book out called Wanjiku Child of Mine, and my interview with her, about the process of, writing the book and her inspiration is launched today. So after this, please check out my interview with Wanjiku on her book, Wanjiku Child of Mine. Chizoba, you're up next. And I hope we can all see what I put up, your presentation.
Yes, I can see it. Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, it's an honor to be invited by you, Dr. Bumi. I think we all adore you for all the work that you've been doing in this space. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you to the fellow panelists for accepting to create space for this important discussion. So we have 10 minutes, so I was really hoping to be brief, but hopefully instructive. Auntie Bumi, you can go to the next slide. So I'll just start with really just a brief introduction about me, which is really where my, the reflections I have today are coming from. So like it's been said, and thank you, Elizabeth, for the introduction. Thank you for the introduction. I couldn't recognize myself, but thank you. Like you said, I'm the founder of Unveiling Africa. This is an organization I started about 20 years ago as a university student, and this was really came from the desire to provide space for Africans in diaspora to contribute to development. And over time, I found that we can't really talk about development on the continent without being very conscious about the role of our culture and our history. And so this kind of moved me into a space of thinking about programming in a way that is conscious of culture and history, particularly targeting the next generation. And so I've used Unveiling Africa as a platform to engage with the next generation, but also my role as a mother. So I have a son, his name is Chidubem, and through him, I think I've tried to experiment some of my ideals about parenting, about raising a new generation that is of Africans who, yes, have roots, are very rooted in their culture, but they can engage with anybody in the world. Because I think that's usually the fear I've heard from parents in Nigeria at least, is that when you start to teach our culture, will my kids be able to compete abroad? And I think in my own way, and I think I see it more clearly in my son, who understands the language. He's not speaking as much as I want him to speak, but he completely understands the language. He's very comfortable with multiple cultures, and he would speak Igbo when he's under duress, and he interchanges, showing the kind of life he's been exposed to. So I'll be sharing my strategies from that perspective. And of course, I think I'm a dreamer. I come up with so many crazy ideas that I can't implement, and then I express it through my son and then my writing. Auntie Bumi, please can you go down?
Okay.
Yeah. So now I think the first thing I wondered about, and I think Auntie Bumi has spoken about the reason for why we need to have roots, and we need to have our roots. And I think, the first question we really need to ask is why is cultural identity important? And why is particularly thinking about identity from an African standpoint? Many of us grew up, at least I grew up with more silence about my African culture. It was just, normal. We all just spoke English. We all just went to church. But I think once you start to mix with a more diverse group of people, the question then becomes, what makes you different? And speaking English there's nothing special about speaking English anymore. Going to church, celebrating Halloween, doing Easter, nothing special about it, really. Everybody does it. But more importantly, you as a Black person, that comes from a specific location. And someone actually asked me this question when I first moved to Canada. So what do you guys do that is different from the rest of us? And I didn't have an answer. So that really got me into digging. What is so special about me? And if everybody that sees me, only the white people that see me and don't really have exposure to their history that see me, they think about when they see Black people is either the slave trade or how they go about saving Africans. So that's all they hold on to. So now, what tools do we give our kids to be able to, I guess, have more matter on the ground, to be able to speak back, to be able to share that I'm more than, I'm not that child. I'm not, the only story about Africa is not people coming to save Africa. And by the way, do you even know the history of that saving business? So we need our young people to be able to, I guess, make the world a bit more balanced. And also, I think when I talk about identity, I'm not only thinking about identity in the sense of you only know your Igbo or you only know your Yoruba or your Kikuyu. I see the world as, a young person being able to have multiple identities. You have your indigenous identity, you have your national identity, and then Pan-Africanism is so important because I think when all is said and done on the global stage, people don't know whether you're Nigerian or whether you're from Kenya. All you know is that you're Black. So how are we nurturing our Blackness amongst our young people within the global stage? And then, of course, claiming space in a global setting. How do you? So for me, I'm thinking when we're talking about nurturing identities, I'm thinking of multiple identities. So we have to, nurture young people that have an open mind, that are exposed to multiple things, that appreciate multiple cultures, and are able to engage, and are able to, interrogate some of these cultures that Dr. Bumi spoke about that might not be relevant to us anymore. So Dr. Bumi, please, can you go next? So based on this, I think in thinking about, strategies, or I think the first question, strategies for nurturing African identity, at least in my own context, I needed to have a why. Why is it important for your child to have a strong African identity? And I think that is something everybody needs to answer. And maybe in other contexts, you can think of it as your vision. You can think of it as your direction or your North Star. The first strategy is, what is your why? And so my own why, I put this picture here, it's not an excellent quality, but the only way I could think about it is that the world we have all been immersed in has been running on just 3 tires or 2 tires. It's been running on just, exactly. It's been, even Okada has balance, right? But this one, when you move with just 3 tires, a car, there's no balance. There's something absolutely missing. And I think when you see how the history of the world that we live in is informed by really just 7 languages, 7 cultures, your Spanish, your English, your French, those are the things, the cultures that are dominant. And the knowledge system that we're all immersed in is still a Eurocentric knowledge system that excludes other knowledge systems that represents people, the diverse cultures of the world. And Africans and our African knowledge system happens to be one of them. So for me, I want to see a future world where the world is actually informed by the diversities of knowledges that make up the world. And I think once we have that, we'll be able to solve more problems. We'll be able to rid ourselves of most of the greed that is occupying our heads. The climate will be under better control. We'll have more empathetic kids. We'll have a safer place for all of our children. So the first strategy I'm sharing is, what is your why? Define your why. Then the second strategy, Antiboni, is start from birth. So I was so happy. I didn't even know that Antiboni had, you've got as far as providing resources from early years and in different categories. But in my own situation, I remember, and I remember there was my friend's mom thought I was really crazy because when I was pregnant for my son, I was so crazy that I'll be reading to my son, and I didn't know he was a boy then, but I'll be speaking the language, I will be I would be just like, the research is, I think, from 18 or from 25 weeks, the kids in your belly can hear you. So I really took that research very seriously. And so I started to speak, and then I would read. And then I remember when, my son was born, there were Igbo rhymes that I grew up with, like, Zobu Zobu Enyi Maini, or maybe they'll say Chizoba Chizoba Kangesu. So I would I would change it to Dubem Kangesu. And then I wanted good night rhymes, and I did not know anyone. So, and good morning rhymes. So I came up with my own as well. Ndewo Dubzi, Ndewo Dubzi. So I made up, and so now my son knows all of these songs now. When he sees babies, he's going to say, "Oye, Tulengane Papa, Ebe Tulengane Papa." So we went for skating last week, and the baby, I went to my friend's nephew, and he told everybody that, "Oh, this is my baby," and the baby started crying, and, "Oh, Oye, Tulengane Papa, Ebe." So so start from birth. It wouldn't, and as we know, if you don't know, no solid foundation, there's nothing to build on. And the research just shows that it's from birth, right? So the next strategy, speak and read the language. So I think I do a very good job, maybe 85% speaking the language to my son, but I've had serious challenges reading, because there are limited books in our indigenous languages. So I think there's a lot of work that is being done in providing early childhood materials that are African-centered, but we need to go beyond to create materials that are exciting, age-appropriate, grade-appropriate, colorful colors, different topics in indigenous languages as well. So I was trying, there was a material I had, and there was a video, I couldn't find the video, of me teaching my son. I had this Igbo thing, and I was trying my best. And sometimes I would take English books and I would read it in Igbo to my greatest ability. So speaking and reading the language. So it's so important. So I think when we're talking about African-centeredness, it's not only about the worldview. The worldview is pretty revolutionary because of the kind of world we live in, but the language is what actually makes a difference. So I cannot overemphasize the need for the kids for you to speak and read. And there's a real challenge, because I didn't grow up with my parents speaking to me. So I feel more comfortable speaking to my child, and I find myself like I'm not speaking like that to my parents or people around me. So I feel like that's why my son is not so, I have to now intentionally tell him, so now he's like, oh, you think, and then, so if there are people here that grew up, I know the Yorubas seem to do it better than Igbos, please speak your language, even if you're a family of two different cultures. I have a friend from Burkina Faso. Her husband is Slovak. It was just incredible. Their 2-year-old child understands Slovak. She understands French, and she's able to switch. 2 years old. I was amazed, completely amazed. So kids are not confused. This is the time to do it. There's no excuse. And even if it's not any of the languages, if you have a different someone in the house that helps you, she speaks a different language or speaks a different language, let them speak to them. Because for me, it feels like opening up different highways in kids' mind. You're trying to get from Lagos to Ibadan. You don't have to, there are many pathways that could get you there. So we want to unlock all the possible roads in our children's minds. And I think language is like you're unlocking that road. So speak on and read. So I hope, when I was doing, I was like, what's stopping me from making my own Igbo books? That's a good question. I'll talk to you, Igbo. So strategy 4. You can go down. Yeah. And then strategy 4, I find this to be really important. Give and use indigenous names. I know me, I grew up with, I guess I had, my parents are very intense Catholics, but they are also very intense about their culture. But I had my baptismal name as Mary. And I remember when it was time to do the baptism for my son, I was in GRA in Lagos, and I told them his baptismal name is Chidubem. They were still looking at me. They're like, we need a saint's name. I said the baptismal name is Chidubem. And the name is very useful to me because I gave birth to him during COVID. I was alone. I didn't have any family member. The only person that came close to a family member is a friend I've had for over 22 years, my oldest friend in Canada. So she's Métis, so she became like family. So I knew, even when we had to travel back, I was like, how am I going to do this? And the meaning of Chidubem is God continue to lead me. So that name means so much. So I can't imagine having a Paul or a Saul or a Raymond. I mean, it doesn't. So, and when you say Chidubem or when you have a name that is indigenous, again, it makes you stand out. You're able to tell a story about yourself that is unique. You're able to provide light and juice wherever you go to. So a name is not, I think people should be a bit more selfish about how they name their children. And the names starts from there. Because at the end of the day, when we think of our lives, when all is said and done, we're all just a pack of stories. We're just stories. So what stories are we arming our children with? What narratives are we arming them with? That allows them and allows people that come around them to look back at where they come from. And where they come from, and keep in mind, where we come from has been looked down on, has been seen as of no importance. It's been a place, it's just really an excavation ground. So how do we transition our sites of birth, where our ancestors come from, which is similar to anywhere like your Greece, is similar to your Toronto or your Edmonton, but these places are revered because you have citizens that have been able to curate the narrative of these places, package this so well that you want to go visit there. But when we don't have people, we need ambassadors, we need foot soldiers that would be able to revere and engage with our culture. And for me, it starts with a name that is meaningful, a name that allows a child to tell a story about themselves and all of that. Auntie Bonnie, please help me go to the next slide. Auntie Bonnie, next slide. Yeah. And so another strategy, immersive home environments. So this, my friend, I'm in Edmonton now, and I saw something interesting that my friend did in her house. She had a family, a photo wall where, she has 2 kids. And what was different about this family tree she had was that for her husband, there was a picture of his parents. So there's a picture of his parents on one side and a picture of her parents as well. So the kids can clearly see that mommy comes from, this is grandma, this is grandma and grandpa from mommy's side, this is grandpa and grandma from daddy's side. And then they had the other pictures of the 2 kids. And I think in our homes we can use photos and photos, generational photos. So this could be an interesting project. So this is actually something I'm working on now with Unveiling Africa, where we're creating a practical guide for young people to learn about their roots. So we're giving them a guide to be able to interview their parents. They will go learn about their place of origin. But this could be tangible because then, again, a home becomes a space where they know, they see that, this is grandma and grandpa. This is kind of what grandma and grandpa did. So you did not just fly down from the sky, right? I mean, it was interesting. While my friend was telling me about the photo wall, she didn't know her dad actually went to Russia. I was like, what? Russia? Like, I would never have thought that. And that just opened. So imagine a child being able to tell you such rich stories about where they come from. So it's that worldview, it's that narrative. And then imagine them having to being a world leader and having to, talk about peace in the world. So of course that connection to Russia provides a source, but you don't know about that. How do you accept yourself as an African that should speak about a particular issue that might seem global and out of your reach? So I think also the greetings and salutations. So my son does it in a way that probably I'm trying to stop him now, but just learning uncles and aunties. So we are very communal people on the continent. So, everybody, and they say it takes a village to raise a child. So I've tried to immerse that to show my son that, okay, some people are Mr. and Madam. I've had to tell him recently because it's now like everybody's uncle, auntie, and old people are grandma something and grandpa something. But I think that is something, it's as easy as that. Greetings. And you see the difference with kids that have been born here, where they just come, oh, hi, and you're like, oh, okay, really, hi, I'm an old person. So even like, indigenous celebrations. So many of us are far from our homes, from our place of origin, but are there New Yam festivals? What are the unique events that is known with our culture, and can we bring that into the home in different ways? So, Antigone, can you go next? Then, of course, external home immersions. So here, I thought this picture was interesting because when my son had his teeth, the first teeth showed up. Apparently, in my culture, the parent, you give an animal. So my dad bought him a goat. So I took him to go see the goats. And he was about 6 months here. So I think visit to hometowns make a difference. History projects with the kids where they go, they are talking to people, they are participating in community events, they're spending time with grandparents, they're spending time with great grand aunties, any elder, really. It doesn't have to be your grandparents are not around, any elder, any auntie or uncle that is trusted. Just expose the child. And even beyond our immediate culture, like I said, I also live in Rwanda as well. My son is learning Kenya Rwanda, and it's completely fine because I want you to understand that the world does not revolve around being Igbo or revolve around being one thing, but the entire globe is your canvas. The next, I think that's the next one. Okay, yeah, conclusion. Okay. So I think just thinking about when I was thinking about all these things I've said, I guess the first thing that came to mind is that, look, this stuff is not easy. You have to, the whole task of continuously speaking, even though you've not grown up speaking that language yourself, is a real challenge. Continuous learning, I found, like in my teaching of myself, I found that I didn't even know the colors in Igbo. And I've said, I have to go learn the colors in Igbo. And then I have to now come and teach him. So it's a constant, it's a journey. There's no destination. So you have to lead by example, really. So I'm trying to be more conscious about speaking with my parents and speaking with my husband. And even if, like I said, my Burkina friend and her Slovak husband, even if you guys, the different spouses, spoke different languages, completely okay. But you on your own, how are you how are you increasing the tempo on your own, or in your own practice of transferring culture, and then consistency. Like I said, also, this is about having a global mindset. It's about really being grounded in something, and then really having the wings to fly so beautifully, so dynamically in whatever direction the world requires of you and the generation that our kids are going to find themselves in with the issues that are there. And I think at the end of the day, what this does gives the children a transdisciplinary mind, where they know they can pull from different resources. They have different ammunitions to pull from, and the language almost provides you great resource. The language, the stories, the tales provides great resource for you to be able to pull from. And then ultimately it's not easy, right? So I saw this, Antigone, you can go to the next. That's my final slide. So I saw this on Canva. They said empower the youth to embrace their heritage and shape a bright future. And I think it's what it is. I decided to keep it. I think it's just clear. We at the next generation is really what we're living for, and the hope that the life they would live will be kinder to them. And I think we cannot, without immersing them in their history, their culture, their heritage, we don't stand a fighting chance of having anything better for them. So that's the end. I don't know if I probably spent more than 10 minutes, but
you did.
Thank you. And just waiting before the next speaker comes on. The beauty of the human brain is that it is fashioned to be multilingual from an early age. children have a natural capacity to learn 3, 4, 5 languages simultaneously. If anything, it actually helps their brain develop better. Having children speaking only one language, you are actually shortchanging them. You're not teaching them from an early age to kind of to switch channels, which is what comes naturally to people who are multilingual from an early age. Thank you very much, Chizoba. I wasn't expecting less from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chizoba, for giving us a lot to ponder on. I mean,
Yes.
you are truly living out. You are actually leading by example.
Yes.
You've spoken to us about how we need to nurture our blackness. We need to start from birth and speak and read the language. You're giving us all of this insight and using your son. You took us to how you took him to the hometown for his after he had a tooth, and how your dad would buy a goat and then you had to take him to the hometown just to give him that experience. And you took us through how you're also giving him all of this lullabies and these poems in your native dialect. And I think that's really beautiful, especially the fact that you're not just speaking to us, but you are also living out what you are also teaching. I think that's really beautiful, and you're truly cultivating cultural roots, and every one of us should actually do that. Thank you very much. Please keep your questions in the chat section. We'll be taking them after this because we're trying to keep to time. I know that there's a lot to say, so we will. I've seen that we're going past our 15 minutes. I don't know if Dr. Bumi would like to also add a few more minutes because I think there's a lot.
Let's take the next speaker. We'll be okay.
Yeah, so our next speaker will be speaking on empowering children to soar, and that is Mrs. Dayo Oladele Ilori, and she will be exploring building confidence and resilience in African children.
Okay, good afternoon. Please let me know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you crystal clear. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I have shared my presentation with Dotun, so I expect that Dotun will put it up.
Okay.
On the screen.
Hello? Dotun, are you there? I don't know why he's not. He could have just made you host.
Okay, can we?
Hello? Hello? Let me.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, can we take
Let's say Wanjiku while we're figuring out how
Yes.
Yes, please. Because I
know you're also tight for time.
Yes, I am, and I was actually sending you a note because I do have to drop off in about 10 minutes.
Okay, please, let's take you. Yeah.
Wow, Dr. Chizo, just amazing. Every single point that you raised you took all of the words that I had planned to speak, and I don't have a presentation prepared. What I'm regretting most is that I'm going to miss out on the dialogue that's going to come after the presentation, because I think that's where the cross-exchange of ideas, where we get to hear from folks and actually tackle challenges that people may have that will not be addressed by some of the strategies shared, I think is the one that I'm regretting the most. But I just wanted to add a few more things to what Dr. Chizo has shared, because the scope that I come with, for me, like you, is I've been in the United States now for 23 years. My children are born and raised here. And many of us, like myself, live in communities where we are one of a few. So in addition to the challenges of transferring knowledge that can shape your own children's sense of self-belonging at home, how do you do that outside of the home when you're not always accompanying them? And one of the strategies that I found worked well and was one of the reasons, the impetus for starting a nonprofit organization that's focused on promoting culture, was to bring that identity along with them and to serve as an advocate. When your children leave the house and you've done all of these wonderful things that allow them to feel comfortable at home, they have a sense of self-worth, they go out into this world that has us, especially as Africans, positioned as less than. So then they'll battle that out of the world and they'll come home and all of that work that you've done has been etched out. So how do you build this bubble where the celebration of our cultures, the celebration of who we are extends out in the communities that we're in? And oftentimes you may find that resources that can help you do that do not exist. So my charge to us as Africans living in new worlds is to build the communities that we want to see for our children. I loved that recommendation around finding festivals, finding these affinity spaces where we, not only ourselves, can see ourselves as belonging, but also help us see that we're not alone. If those spaces do not exist, build them. If your child especially finds themselves in a situation, as my children have found themselves now in high school, where there's about 2,000 other students, and about 1% of them are Black. And then even a smaller percentage of that 1% are of African descent, they will get lost. So you as a parent need to show up to the schools. I've met many parents who are from Kenya, like myself, who have never done a parent-teacher conference or who've never emailed a teacher. You have to be front and center so that your teachers can see you. And when they see you, they see your children through you. If your children see you in those spaces where they normally are alone, they feel empowered. My son now is applying to serve on the school board as a student board member because he has seen that you can move mountains if you show up even when you are alone. So I cannot stress more about building affinity spaces where our children not only can find belonging, but where children can know that they can advocate for themselves. And as they get older, I find that those challenges are even more complicated. And so whereas we want to teach them about the self-identity, it is also the self-empowerment that they always remember, that they can also continue to do what you're doing in their own perspective. And the last point I'm going to make is around the new generation in a new world, right? We've seen how communities from other parts of the world can come into modern spaces and build an environment that is for them. I think about the Chinese communities and the Indian communities from India. Where are they buying their food? From themselves. Where are they going to schools? Their own schools. Where are they celebrating? They're putting the celebrations themselves and creating this space where you almost have a little India, a little China. Where is our little Africa? Where we are not only uplifting our own communities, but ensuring that we are owning the spaces that we now occupy in this new world. That these new spaces also belong to us, and that we have a right to show up in our languages, in our food, in our regalia. And I hope if ever you are in California, in the first weekend of October, you can join us for Taste of Africa Festival in Northern California, because those spaces don't exist. We have to create them, and it allows us to show up loudly and boldly and also own the spaces that we belong in. Do it at home. At home is important. We all know if you start from home, home is always best, and you build the home, then going out into the world will be a lot easier. But do it at home and also bring it out into the community for the community to see you embracing your language and speaking your language and celebrating your food. Whenever my daughter and I travel, both of my children are doing travel basketball. So we travel around the country. Every new city we stop at, we will first look for an African restaurant. We don't care which African, it's food from the continent and we want to celebrate it. And then the last thing that I heard, somebody made a comment in the chat, which I really liked. Skafrika. If we identify ourselves as Africans and not Blacks, that will confuse our children less. And I couldn't agree more. The importance of individual story, the uniqueness of who you are, and appreciation of that yourself from that context is very important. So for me, first, I am Kikuyu, my original people, where my grandmother came from, the name that was given to me when she from my grandmother. And then I am Kenyan, because in Kenya, I can speak for the Kikuyu culture, but I cannot speak for the other 40 different linguistic groups. So I need to understand my heritage first. And then when I come into the world, I'm Kenyan American. So my children will identify themselves as Kenyan American and from the Kikuyu. And that drives curiosity. People will want to know more. Tell me more about Kenya. Is that in Canada? And I have to say, no, Kenya is not from Canada. Let me tell you more about Kenya. And as our children are showing up into the world and the world is expressing curiosity, remind our children to also express curiosity about the world around them, because they will always be able to put themselves in context in the space that they exist in. Thank you so much, Dr. Bumi. I am so incredibly honored to even be a small part of this conversation. And after listening to our first speaker, there are some points raised where I wish I could go back and do some, because boy, those were some really good tips.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Wanjiku. Please look out for her book, Wanjiku Child of Mine. It's a book I had the privilege of reading before it came out, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. And it's a book you can share, with your young ones, because for me, even as old as I am, it brought back memories, of my time growing up with my grandmother. So please look it up, Wanjiku Child of Mine. Chizoba, you also have a book coming out soon, right? You have to tell us before you go.
I will.
Yes, so Elizabeth, you're mute. Elizabeth, we can't hear you.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I was muted. So she mentioned some really salient points and talking about balancing tradition and globalization. And I like how all of the speakers have been very expressive with how they are also channeling everything that they're doing and their practices with their children. She mentioned how it's important that we can move mountains when we show up, even when we're alone. And that actually stuck out to me, because I'm thinking many times you want to show up, but then you're thinking, I'm the only African here, I'm the only Nigerian here. How about that? But there is power in being alone, because I actually have a niece who is in the United Kingdom, and every time I'm speaking to her, and she's telling me that she's the only Black child, she's the only Nigerian, she's the only one she's doing, and she tells me how she goes ahead and Lizzie, I did this, and I'm very impressed. And I have to encourage her every time to be that person that is not scared to be alone. I think that those are the important things that she has said in this webinar, talking about how it's important, how we can move mountains even when we're alone, and only in the spaces that we occupy in this world. So I think that's very beautiful. Please keep your questions in the comment section. We'll be taking questions after this. This is really interesting. So I'm going straight now to Mrs. Dayo Oladele Ilori. who will be telling us all about building confidence and resilience in African children and the role of education in empowering children for success. She's also going to be talking about fostering leadership skills and critical thinking in children. So, Mrs. Dayo Oladele Ilori, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to be at this wonderful forum. Yes, very exciting topic about fostering African identity and resilience in modern parenting. Parenting is a very dear topic to me because of the many works that we have done at our NGO in the last 6 years. So anytime I get an opportunity to speak about parenting, it's also an opportunity to share, the many challenges we face as we deal with parents and children, and the many initiatives that we can leverage on to, make the society actually better. Next slide. So today I'll be touching on today's parenting challenges, building your parenting capacity, building confidence and resilience in African children, Heights and Chicken, empowering children for success, talking about education, leadership skills, and critical thinking. Then we'll go right into conclusion. Yes, and that is me. One of the most interesting things I would like you to take away about me, apart from the fact that I've authored 4 books. So when I saw that this was, book lover space, it was also very nice to be on there. And I think one of the things I did add when I was putting on my profile was to add a particular play that, continues to bring smiles to my face anytime I think about it. It's called Yawoni Shekushi and Baboni Jekuje. It's one of the things, the few plays I've written in the Yoruba language, because I know many people is very tough to write in your language, very, very tough. But it's like a comedy that even when people see me on the road, older folks will stop me and remind me of the title, Yes, the most important thing I want you to take away today is the fact that I founded an NGO called We Lead Network, and We Lead Network is solely focusing on boys, 70%, and about 30% for women. And because of this, parenting is very key to what we do. Of course, I'm married and I have 3 children. Next slide. So what are today's parenting challenges? Talking about ensuring that our children, become excellent, become that success story that we want to see. Most of our parents are accidental parents. You hear things like bring back our upbringing, which I said is not quite literal. So when you say bring back how we were raised, how we were brought up, there's so many people who continue to clamor for that traditional parenting. We preserve our culture, we preserve our tradition, which is true. But the times have changed. We are now in an age where some of these things that were practiced during our own parents' time are no longer applicable. For instance, when I was growing up, one of the toughest things that I would say for as a child was actually sharing the same couch with my dad. It was, when somebody embodies authority in such a way that, even when you want to sit near them, you are sitting in a way that you are careful not to make a mistake. That was the kind of situations that oftentimes, even though it was quite friendly, that authority was still there. Now taking it back to our own time now, where we're trying to break all the barriers, we want to be friends with our children, we want them to experience something more cordial, you begin to ask, is this what we want? Is it to bring back what we used to experience, or actually adopt the modern parenting? Again, most mothers are parenting as single parents, even though the family system seems healthy. They're in a home. The family is together. But you see that most mothers are parenting as single parents, while the fathers are largely physically absent. That is what we have. Again, globalization as powered by technology has left a lot of parents in their old address. So we are not growing with time. We are still where we used to be. We haven't caught up with technology as we should catch up with technology. When you talk about a lot of parents and we talk about AI, a lot of us are lost because we don't even know where to piece it together. And we have children that were raised with tablets in their hands. I mean, immediately you have these children, we literally handed them a phone or a tablet, or you place them in the world of the internet. I mean, some children, their first pictures were taken and placed on the internet without permission. I mean, that is the kind of life that we have found ourselves. Then parents, the fourth point is parents are very pretentious. Many times we will behave as if we have never been where our children used to be. So when you hear something like, oh, your daughter has a crush on a boy in class, a lot of mothers or fathers will be like, what? You're not supposed to. I mean, they see it as so offensive, unbelievable. But when we were growing up, these things happened to us. They were part of our lives. We are human, they are also human. When you find parents pretending that they never existed in that planet, as if they grew somewhere else, you know. The fifth one is parents are suffering from a lot of peer pressure. If you look at this Japa syndrome, for instance, everybody wants to travel. Everybody wants to take their children abroad. I mean, some parents don't even know why they want to travel. They just want to travel. Again, with some parents who take their children to particular schools, they just want to be with the Joneses. They don't really have a vision. Those are part of the challenges that we have with parents. The last one I'll touch on is active listening. Our inability to manage our emotion is very predominant with us. So when you hear something about when a child is trying to tell you something that is bothering them, say for instance, when you hear things like, oh, my bed is wet for a young boy who has just had the wet dream, some mothers or fathers will fly up the handle and ask questions like, what were you thinking about? What was on your mind? Have you started moving with terrible gangs? And they are not even able to process the kind of things that child is trying to pass along, the comforts they need. And the next time it happens or something else happens, this child is not likely to talk to the parents. So active listening is missing. That emotional, being able to absorb shock is one of the things we teach. When your children tell you things, you don't need to show a lot of emotions, you know, absorb it, listen. Active listening is also missing. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we talk about empowering children, when you talk about empowering children, I've also found that it's important for us to empower parents first before we talk about empowering children. When you say, oh, we want to cultivate our children, we want them to become success stories, these gardeners called parents, these caretakers called parents, these guardians called parents, are they equipped to raise these children like they should be raised? Those are some of the questions that we need to ask. And many times, I remember when we started our campaign in 2019, we were in about 32 schools, including 2 correctional centers in Lagos for boys. And we were, training boys from different schools. And, after having done the training to an extent, counselors called us and told us that what you are doing is excellent, what you are doing is fabulous, is courageous, is important. But have you also thought about the fact that after teaching these boys all of these wonderful life skills, have you also thought about the fact that they go back home to parents who are really cute? These parents act as step-down transformers when these boys get home. Have you also thought about building a community of stronger parents, more well-equipped parents for this journey called parenting. Building parenting capacity is very important when we talk about ensuring that children soar and become successful. I will start with our parenting styles. There are 4 major parenting styles, but I will touch on the most important, the most effective, which is the authoritative parenting. We have the authoritarian, which is what I painted between my father and myself, where our parents, our African parents largely, they give orders. This is it, this is what I want you to do, and that is it. I mean, you are not, your opinion is not sought, more or less. We have the permissive parents who allow their children have a free reign in their lives. These are parents who raise very badly brought up children because they want to be friends with their children. They want them to be happy with them. Then we have parents who are not even involved. They don't even know whether their children exist. And you'll be shocked that there are parents like that, parents who are so self-absorbed, who don't even know what is going on with their children. Then we have the authoritative parents who can, if you can picture from the good book, if I can refer to that, the character Solomon, you will see that he mostly gave instructions to his children. He told them about consequences. If you do this, this is what will happen. That is the picture of an authoritative parent. And for an authoritative parent, you are not your children's friends. Most parents miss that. They say, oh, I want to be friends with my children. No, you are not their friends. You are their parents. Because before you can even start rubbing shoulders and start becoming friends, they would have become adults. Maybe they also have their own children. And you can be talking to them on that level. You have being realistic about expectations and another capacity parents should build. Many times we expect so much, so little at a time. Many people treat their 5-year-old as if they are already 10. You see, parents refer to a 5-year-old boy as a man. They say, oh, why are you crying? But you're a man, you're not supposed to cry. Those are the kind of unrealistic expectations. Then we compare our children to other children who have different capacity. When you talk about capacity, there are children who are very arts inclined, there are children who are very science inclined, there are children who are sports inclined, and you can't compare these children. You have parents who are parenting as one. I mentioned that. And for you to build a good parenting capacity, you must parent as a block. So if the father exists, he must be involved. If the mother exists, she must be involved. There are exceptional situations where parents are single or one has gone to rest. In this kind of situation, yes, there will be other father figures and mother figures around them. But where they exist, please be in the life of your children. Show your children a lot of empathy. That is the first point. For you to build your parenting capacity and your capacity, please show them a lot of empathy. Show them a lot of care. Express your emotion. In Africa, it's very tough. Expressing our emotion is a bit tough because it's rarely part of our culture. We don't embrace, we don't hug, we don't peck, we don't praise. Instead of your parents to say, oh, well done, you have done well, they will add to the task they have given to you without acknowledging what you have done. So, for you to build good parenting skills, you must show empathy, you must express your emotion. You must create a safe space around your home where your children are happy to come with their problems. Don't create that home where they are afraid to speak. Again, for the next point, parental guidance versus parental control. You see on when you watch videos, most times, or you're watching, you hear things around parental control, maybe 15 years, 20 years, 11 years, 12 years. There are this video is violent or something like that.
Ma'am, can I come in, please? You need to be rounding up your presentation, please, because of time, ma'am.
Okay, so parental guidance or parental control, which do we prefer? When you talk about parental guidance, you are showing them, you are telling them what to do, you are instructing. When you talk about parental control, you are taking the rein, you are not allowing them to take their own decision. Another thing parents need to do for them to build their parenting capacity, for their children to soar, is to understand technology. You must put yourself in that space where you understand what is going on around you. I mean, there are courses online that you can take as a parent to learn trends in tech. Of course, you can also enroll for parenting classes. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so when we talk about building confidence and resilience in children, there are 7 C's I want you to focus on, and I'm just going to read through the 7 C's. For us to build children who are going to soar successfully, we need to build their competence. When I say competence, focus on their strength. We need to build their confidence. When we talk about confidence, don't run to help them all the time. Allow them to experience failure. It's part of the building block. The third one is allow for connection. In my own home, we do something we call family conversation. We have that every other week, where we come together as a family. Of course, those that are not at home now who are in school, they join virtually, where we have our discussion as a family. That's building connection. The first one is character. You can enroll your children in character building school. You can also allow them learn skills, character and skills, such as peer pressures, emotional intelligence, and related courses, whether formally or informally. The next is contribution. Hear them out. Allow them to be part of the decisions you make at home. Help them build their coping mechanisms when life throws challenges. Equip them enough to be able to have adaptive behavior to try. Then the last one is control. That's internal control. There is no man who is greater than his own emotions, because it's very easy for us to fail when we cannot control our emotions. So these are just an expression of what empowering children for success looks like. And from what I got, it's focused on success, leadership skills, and critical thinking. I said success combines team with character education. For leadership skills, 2 things. Allow your children volunteer more for social causes, and then put them in internship. At every level of as they grow, expose them to internship. Then for critical thinking, help them build their curiosity. Do it in such a way that they understand choices and consequences. If I sleep with a woman as a young man, I might impregnate that woman, and that might be the beginning of the end of my career. Vice versa, the young woman. Next slide. So in conclusion, when we talk about empowering Africa as a continent, there's so many things that we can talk about, but I will just narrate to one major thing, talking about having deeper connection with our children. How do we build deeper connection with our children? I mentioned things as simple as hugs and having that cozy time, listening to them. But I also just want to point out something that was very, very important when as I went on, as I go on my own parenting journey. I write letters to my children all the time. When they are leaving home, I drop a note when they're in the boarding school, I drop a note for them. When I go visiting, I drop a note for them. One of the letters I wrote when my first son was going to get into secondary school is published in the cable newspaper. Very interesting, because a lot of parents use that when they started sending their children off to school. It's called Letter to My Son. If you want to check it out, you can also check it out on the cable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mrs. Dayo Oladele Ilori. Thank you very much for those enriching points and for taking us through how to empower children better. I mean, you mentioned the 7 C's, which I'm taking home with me: competence, inspiring competence in your children, confidence, connection, character, contribution, hoping, and control. And you talked all about inspiring leadership skills in them and the keys for critical thinking, which I think is very important, especially in this time. Many children, there's this challenge, like they just want to outsource their thinking to their parents. And I've seen how important it is to have children that actually critically think. The difference is always clear. I mean, this has been a very enriching webinar. I know that we have so many questions, but there's something more that you even said. You talked about helping them to understand choices and consequences. I think that's really important because when you're telling children, don't do this is why you should do this is why you should not do this. But then you're just telling them, you're not giving them the why. You're not talking about the consequences and all of that. So it's very important to help them understand choices and the consequences. So thank you very much once again, Ma, for those genius ideas and points that you've taken us through today. This webinar has been really, really helpful. I know we have questions. Please, can you drop them in the comment section or just signify by show of hands so that we can take your questions and then we can call it I don't want to say a day because everybody's not in the same world, right? In different parts of the world right now. So we can call it wraps with this. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat section, or if you want to speak on them, please indicate so that we can take your questions. Thank you.
I think there are some things, comments and questions
already. And there's some hands up already.
Oh, there are some hands up.
Princess. Oh, maybe Mr. Adebayo, maybe you can mute yourself as well because there's echo.
Okay. Oh, okay. Please. Did you say Princess?
Yeah, so Dwayne had his hand and then Princess. Okay. That's the order I saw.
Okay, all right. So, Dwayne, I think they say you have your hand up first, and then we go to, I think that must be Princess Wakegu. I think I saw her sign.
And maybe Mr. Adebayo could mute himself because there's an echo coming from him. Mr.
Adebayo Ilukweju, please mute yourself.
Thank you.
Dwayne, you have your hand up. Please go. You have the floor.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is such an honor to have been part of this this event here, and happy to say I'm a very dear friend of Dr. Chizoba Moka. We are like family, and you know, I'm happy about many things. One of the things I notice here, and I'm not sure if anyone else is, but I am not directly from the continent, but we are from the continent. My background is Jamaican. But I am also very proud that my wife is Nigerian. My wife is Igbo. And I married the daughter of Chief Mwabisi Iraga.
Oh.
Yes. So I'm extremely proud of that. I'm extremely proud that I sent my sons to Africa, to Nigeria to study. I'm extremely proud of that. And one of the things I wanted to mention is thinking about the power of stories. There's one quote, and I'm not going to be very long, but Malcolm X said, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make an innocent guilty and make the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses. Mm-hmm. So, we are somebody who, my question is really about stories. And the stories, in your view, could our stories be used to unite and emancipate Africans across the world? Should this be a priority? And I just wanted to mention, we work directly with young people in the high schools here in Canada, and directly with Black high schools in particular. And we have a problem. Our kids don't know themselves. They are in dire need. They're working with young Black men who are being slated to be thrown out of the schools. African young men, Ghanaian, Nigerian, Jamaican, no one knows the difference anymore. But they bought into the narrative that they should wear their pants down and not comb their hair. And so when they come in, they don't show up in their glory. And they don't have the marks to get into university. So we are having to do remedial work. And so my question is, how do we use our stories and reclaim our identity so that our kids know who they are? Because people have hijacked our identity and are using it against us.
Chizoba, do you want to respond to that?
Wow. I think, Auntie Bumi, you should respond to that.
This is also something that I have noticed. This idea of sagging. And I can assure you, if you call 10 kids who sag their pants and ask them why they are sagging or how it came about, they don't know, they will not know. Which is where the power of storytelling comes in, you know. And what I found is that sagging is a tradition that actually started in prisons. You understand? Young guys in prison as part of being defiant and all of that. And most of these young people you see in the secondary, high schools and things like that, it's not because they know that this is linking them, you know, to imprisonment. But I guess if we're able to either at home tell them, look, this is where this thing originates from. This is not the kind of culture. It's going to be seen as a black thing. But this is not the kind of culture you should be proud of. If anything, you know, it's the kind of culture you should live your life, you know, to show that you do not approve of. So I agree with you, but there are so many ways, but they also see it on television. You know, they see some of the celebrities they like, you know, in movies and TV series, they like sagging without making that connection. I think it's just a question of us being consistent. I see Dr. Medinos.
I'll just add to that. I think I don't know if the issue can be tackled just from a story level. I think the dimension of parental capacity and community capacity as well. Because without, like, by the time you're 16 and you're sagging, something has gone wrong at the foundation already. So what can we do as a community to support each other? Especially when you have a situation where it might be a single parent or there's poverty, or there are many things amiss that might reduce the capacity of a parent to parent in the way that is required for a child to show up as a teenager looking whole and wholesome. So I think this is a question of communal and parental capacity within the Black community.
And I do not agree with you, Dwayne, when you introduced yourself as being African, but no, you are Jamaican. You're of African descent. You are African.
Well, I know who I am.
You are African.
One thing I will tell you, what I find very interesting is when I'm in different groups, we must make intention. We must be intentional to get in each other's groups.
Yes.
Usually we are by ourselves. I'll go to many of our Jamaican events, and they're extremely African, but they are just them.
Yes.
For the African groups, we must make an intentional, be intentional on getting into each other's groups and making sure that because how can you be in a Jamaican group talking about Africa and there are no Africans there? They're not even from the continent. It makes no sense. We must be intentional. There is. That's one thing. But the stories part are important because these people are taking the stories and the narrative from the television that's who they are. They don't know who they are.
It's not.
So they think that they are rappers. They don't know that their parents are educators. They don't know this.
Okay.
I think there was a hand up.
Dr. Medinos, sing your hand.
The princess's hand was on since she has been raising.
Oh, sorry, Princess, you'll go on next. And I see Professor Akachi Ezigbo is also here. So please, we must hear from all of you.
Okay, sorry, Princess, if I'm infringing on your time. This just can't wait because I've listened to people talk about how it is important to let the children, especially those of them born in the diaspora, know where they came from and what the cultures are. I agree with that in total. And another thing is, if you do not have a self-concept, meaning this is where you came from, this is what's expected of you, or this is what it has been in the family going down the line, you will not know which direction you are going. First, you need to know where you came from to know where you are going. That's one. Then two, when I posted something on the chat about the federal government of the United States changing the categories of race and ethnicity, this just happened last month. They added a category called Middle Eastern and North African, and now you do not choose a race based on who Black, Hispanic, and non-Hispanic, or Black, Hispanic anymore, because there is a category called Hispanic. So the reason they did that was because they wanted people to be granular as possible, showing where you came from, how you want to be identified. That has nothing to do with your nationality. When you go home to Nigeria and you want to be to show that you're a Nigerian, yes, for crying out loud, you can do that. Have that spirit of nationality, but having a self-concept that, yes, this is who I am. On paper, when I'm asked, who are you, I can choose my ethnicity based on what I've been told. This is my self-concept. This is who I am. I am Black. I am from this and that and that. You know all that. You are proud of yourself. You will not want to emulate every stupid thing you see on TV or on the internet. Yes, I'm telling you, that's really, really important. You do not want to veer away from where you are going because some stupid child wore his pants down under his knees, so anyway, but on the whole, thank you very much, everybody who presented. I found this very fascinating. It's a great way to spend my Saturday afternoon.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have Princess Wakego Ibrahim.
Yeah.
I think we can take you now, ma'am. Please, you need to unmute your microphone so we can hear you. We cannot hear you. Okay.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Bumi, for organizing this forum. Very interesting and very challenging at the same time. I'm speaking from the point of view of being an expatriate mother who had to raise 5 children in Europe and having to create self-worth and self-esteem in them being Nigerians. I like what was it Chizoba that said. I've always brought up my children as Nigerians, even after living about 2 decades outside of Nigeria. We eat Nigerian food, they dress Nigerian, they speak Nigerian. I've made them know that no matter what ethnicity you end up choosing for yourself, you cannot be what you're not. You will try to be, and that's why a lot of children are having an identity clash. They don't know. I have children calling themselves Canadian, American, Nigerian, British. No, you're just one person who needs to identify a culture that meets your norms and your values. And what is culture? A culture, from a quote I've always enjoyed, I would like to share. It says, if we are to preserve culture, we must continue to create it. We are the ones to create the culture. We have societal value. It's not all societal value that result to your norms or your beliefs or your values. So as family, that's why in some family, this is a family tradition. Why? They have found out that this is what works for them. So as a parent that raised 5 children in Europe, I made sure that they learn to speak the language. The older girls, the younger ones, for every country they live, we put them in the language class for them to be able to express themselves and integrate properly into the environment. But the most important thing is they know that they are Nigerians. Even if they end up having an American passport, you still see my children introducing themselves as, when people ask them originally from where, they say, no, originally from where, we are Nigerians. And once they understand that, then that dual life they live in, an African and then being in another culture, does not have a clash. They live best of both worlds. They take what is very edifying from their root and they take what is edifying from the cultures. Like for my kids that have lived in different continents, you can imagine if I don't stand my ground, the different cultures they would have taken from the different continents they've lived. Today I would have had messed up children who really don't know where they belong. But my 5 kids, they know that they are Nigerians. And I had an incident when we were in The Hague, and they went to the British school, and they were doing all this Halloween, and they were doing all this sexual, when these same-sex marriages were popping up left, right, and center. Amongst all the African women, I was the one that went to the school and said, when you people are doing Halloween, can you please put my children in the library or call me to come and pick my children? I do not understand Halloween. It's not part of my culture, and I don't want my children to become accustomed to what is not our culture. And when they started this same-sex videoing, teaching them, I wrote to each of their teachers that please, they should also take my kids to the library or send them home to me, that I will be the one at the appropriate age to discuss such intimate matters with my children. So what Dr. Chizoba is saying is so right, because I am a living example of having to bring 5 children up with the teenage ones telling me how they know their rights. I said, if you know your rights, you end up in a foster home first. So, you need to draw the boundaries. But like you said, you have to be consistent with the culture yourself. You yourself have to be very comfortable with the culture. I've seen Nigerian mothers that went abroad. Before you know, they became more British and more European than the people who are Europeans. You cause confusion for them. Then when the chiefs are down, you suddenly want to become an African mother, and the children are looking at you, mommy, when did this one start? So you, as a parent, must be rude. Like my children, they tell their friends when they come to my home, say, when you come to my home, please don't say hello to my mom, don't say hi to my mom. You say good afternoon, ma. Today they tell all their friends that don't understand our culture. They say, in my home we don't say hello. When you come to my home, you say good afternoon, ma, good evening. And when she's talking at you, you cannot walk away. They tell them the rules. So this, when that code says we create the culture that we want, is not a joke. You cannot be complacent in one area and suddenly you want to become Nigeria. Then suddenly you're American, then suddenly you're British. We, the parents, it starts with parenting. What do you believe you are? Who do you want to be? Is what you are that your children will be. So I just want to say that charity begins at home. Culture, we are the culture. Culture is not something you go and borrow. We create the culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have 3 hands up. I'll ask Dr. Bumi how many more people we can take.
Let us give those 30 seconds each so we can round up.
Okay, thank you. So we have Mobolale Oshin, we have Mr. Kole Odutola, and we also have a hand up. I don't know if it's Mr. or Mrs. Missy Obey. So I'm going to take Mobolale Oshin now.
Yes. Hi, Bola.
Good evening, ma.
How are you, my dear?
Fine, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, I started this meeting. I didn't even know I was here, but I came in and it put so much perspective into a lot of things, and I thought I could share an experience. So I'm in the UK as a secondary school teacher. I'm a teacher of science in the school. And over the holidays, a couple of weeks ago, we take pride in my school of being multicultural, diverse, and all the languages that have been used. And a couple of weeks ago, I went into the library. I wanted to, so we were going on a holiday, and I wanted to get the book I would read over the holiday. And then I realized I went through the entire library and I didn't find one single African. And for some odd reason, I was upset. I was so upset. So I went back to my room. I fired an email to the librarian. How can you make yourself multicultural and not have a single African book? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know why. I was just really upset about it. And that part, and then they asked me for some recommendations. I gave them everything. I didn't get them until the book, but they said they did that going into drama needed a curriculum change and all of that. And I just went wild with all the African books that I tried. And that was the end of it for me. And about a week after, I get into my classroom, and there's this bag, and I look inside it, and they had bought every single book I recommended. And they had bought class set of books I recommended. Now, what's my point? My point is sometimes we're not showing up.
Yeah.
We're the ones not showing up.
Yeah.
We're the ones not showing up. Because when I did all of this, I didn't even know a platform like this existed. I didn't know the context in which it affected. But there were Nigerian children in my class who couldn't pronounce their names. And I think I had just had enough. All of it had just come together, and I was just really upset. But what the interesting thing was, the principal came later to say thank you. A lot of teachers came later to say thank you. And as one of them, I was bold enough to ask, why did you say thank you? And she said, because you made a change.
It's the power of one. It's the power of one.
It didn't have a purpose when I was doing it. I just found that it's a little thing. Just need to show up. My name is Mo Bolanle. They try to call me Mo. Don't call me Mo. It's not Mo. Why don't you make it easy for you? Why do you get so upset when they call you? I said because Mo has no meaning.
Wow.
Her name has meaning.
Yes.
Yes, it has meaning. Mo has no meaning. Anything, but I know you are making an effort to call me my full name. You'll get it at some point. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that we need to show up sometimes ourselves. My kids luckily were born in Nigeria and came in after the week. And you will see the pride in which my daughter said she went into one of her friend's houses and was telling her that she's going to come and cook jollof rice. And I went out with her one day and she was taking a swallow, and I was blinking at her. You can't be eating with hands. I was thinking of this, thinking of eating. You know, so sometimes we need to show up ourselves and not wait to be called upon. We need to come to the front of the stage and see that we have something to offer before other people will take the interest in us.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right then.
Dr.
Thank you very much.
I think you're next.
Yes. Mr. Kole Odutola, please you need to unmute
Dr. Kole Odutola.
Kole Odutola is good. Please.
Okay. How are you?
I am so happy that I have been a witness to Roots and Wings 2.0. And I'm looking forward to Roots and Wings 2.0.
Okay.
For most of what everybody has said, yes, the roots happen to be the identity, the culture, and the part of the culture that has been emphasized and almost overemphasized are things like names, things like identity, who they are, what they are. And this seems to be, the foundation of it. And a little peripheral too, because they're young people, this is where to start. But my concern is, if you pay attention to the roots and to the foundation. What is going to be the superstructure? What is going to be built on it? And I will just make a few of the suggestions of what I noticed that African parents don't talk about. They do not talk about financial literacy as based in the African concept and conceptualizations. Pardon me if I missed out on that. Maybe your children are too young to be brought into the ethos of African, or even if I want to be specific, Yoruba mode of production, which is cooperation. Maybe in some of the things you say, you tangentially touched upon it, but I have found out that we have been reduced by the colonial masters to be reactive. And we are constantly reacting to people calling us Mo. Call me anything you want. Call me anything you want. Maybe that is the beginning. Maybe that is what. But I want to live in a world where I want the Western scientists to know that I also come from a culture that has science. That if I've not explained it, is not my fault. No, I want them to know that bere is not fetish. It is just the way in which we treat. I want them to know that in the Western pharmacopoeia, you send poisons after pathogens. But in the Yoruba culture, we will give you herb in order to strengthen your system to fight the pathogens. These might be esoteric ideas that might be too much for children. But how many parents actually know that? How many parents know that beyond dressing, beyond naming, beyond all of these other things, there is more to the culture? And we're not taking our place in the world because the foundation and the roots we're given basically just looks at the peripherals. What of when you say you're giving somebody a wing, it means that they're going to fly. The two of them are almost antithetical, to be rooted and to be able to fly. But your ability to fly is that you can own the world and go to the marketplace of ideas and the commons with your own. But what ideas are these children who know their names, know the meaning of their names? What are they taking to the commons? Would anybody here accept that the beginning of the computer is a binary and it has its roots in Ifa? Are these things too out of the way? When we will start to talk about this and leave the idea of we eating food, eat anything you care. But
Okay, I need to interrupt you, Colin.
We must be. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I want to throw a challenge at you, Colin. You are not only a professor, you are also a writer. And this seminar is about also using our powers as storytellers. Let us come up with stories, with books that tell our children all these things about our pharmacopoeia, about the source of computation and things like that in ways that they can have access to from a very early age. So that as they grow up, they see themselves as being people who are rooted, in traditions that would allow them to not only decide the course of their own future, but to be participatory in whatever global discourses they find themselves. I totally agree with you. We are too committed to the way the global economic infrastructure is set up. A lot of us do not challenge it, because we think that is the only way. But it's not. We have cultural practices that we have relegated, that we need, to expose. And the earlier we expose them to our children, the better, the more useful they will be for them. I totally enjoy your intervention, and I totally agree, with where you're coming from.
We also have Missy Obe, whose hand have been.
But that's the last person, and then
Hello. I just want to say I really had fun. Like, this is such a very educative aspect. And I just want to refer to the gentleman that talked about influencing Black boys and Black kids. I work in the foster space here in Canada, and you understand that by the time a child gets into the foster system, it's completely messed up from the foundational system. So, and most of them, their parents are so messed up that they don't even have anything to offer. So we're telling the kids that they are sagging. You have to look at it that where are they even coming from? Some of them are fending for themselves. Some of them is their friend that is feeding them. Some of them, their parents don't even have a say in their lives. And when you get to that space, the only thing you can do is influence. And I will refer to that man. It's only influence. You can only influence and impact them and pour into them, because in the end, you might be the only positive voice that child is going to hear between now and getting into prison, or between now and being killed on the gang street. So, and most of my kids, I tell them, look, you can be whoever you want to be. There's still chance for us to rebuild. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, but we can still rebuild. The pain is real, the trauma is real, the hurt is real, but we can use that energy positively. So we shouldn't assume that the Bible says that when the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do? If you build on a faulty foundation, it's going to collapse. All this thing we've talked about is beautiful. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm so invested in this. But at the same time, if we don't deal with what we're building on, then it's just going to be a matter of time before it flies out of their ears, or they go back into the community and they don't have the strength and the tenacity to push past the forces and the current that is building against them. And also, we have to understand that sometimes you are the only positive influence for the outsider. It's not just about raising our kids now. There are so many kids out there who do not hear anything positive, and we need to, as a community, expand our outreach and expand that boy on the street, that child that you see helping another family next door. Like, we need to reach out beyond our own children to more also to the community. Thank you
very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have to talk about this. We've had like a lot of comments on the chat section as well, so we'd like to acknowledge all of those comments. Someone, Kola Wale, says that invitation should be extended to more people in future so that more young parents will come to these webinars to learn and avoid mistakes some of us have made. And we have people that have commented and said that we forget ancient wisdom at our period. A lot of commendations and comments. So I must say that this has been very impactful.
Yes, thank you. And the idea is for us to do this more regularly. We're not going to wait another 2 years. We actually, making this something that we're going to do more frequently and more regularly. And so hopefully more people will have the opportunity. Besides, this has been also aired live on our YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, as well as those of us who are here on Zoom. So we're hoping it would have as many, be able to reach as many people as are not able to be with us here today. So can I round up by thanking our formidable speakers? I don't think we could have had a better group of speakers to kind of set up the kind of conversations we've had. Dr. Chizoba Imoka Ubochioma, we truly appreciate you. Wanjiku case, Mrs. Oladele Ilori, your presentation was fantastic, and thank you all for attending. We're also going to, I think, edit these things into some shorter versions, so people can always reach out and recall some of the conversations we've had. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much for having me, Ma, as your moderator. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the audience. The audience was incredible.
Oh, we've had the most fantastic audience.
Thank you.
Your contributions Princess, everybody who contributed, Bolanle,
Dwayne,
Dr. Medinos, everybody. Yes, Dwayne, I really
Dr.
appreciate it.
Pauline, Miss Princess
Yes,
Olakego,
thank you.
Mrs. Dayo, Oladele, everybody.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Rest of the
Bye.
day. Bye.
I forgot to thank our coordinator, Oludotun Oyeyemi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dotun.
Dr.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for being
More
there
empowered.
from the beginning, Dr. Alabi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for the fantastic presentation. Well done, ma.
Yeah.